Behind us are 4 of the newest and most compelling mid-sized electric SUVs on the market, and in this video we're going to tell you which one is best.
And they're all priced from around $60,000 as well. Family electric cars. This is going to be a really competitive comparison, I think.
Pretty impressed with the look and feel particularly. I think a lot of buyers will be as well. While the Tesla is shorter at 4 years or 80,000 Ks. Tailgate is very low. I hit my head on that many times during filming this video.
I've got to say, these brakes are a real letdown.
Now, the newest face in this group is the updated Tesla Model Y, but then again, not everyone wants a Tesla.
No, that's right, and we have more options these days. So we've got something like the BYD Sealion 7, that's from China. That's a very popular option in itself, and we've also got one up the back there that you maybe haven't heard of before, the XPeng G6. But Alex, tell me about this wildcard option.
It's the Volkswagen ID.4. This car's taken its time to get to Australia, but hopefully it should be its best form yet. I'm curious to see how it stacks up against these other Chinese-made options.
Yes, we've got a lot to get through, so let's get into it.
We picked these 4 cars because we think they represent the best of the best in the mid-size electric SUV class around the $60,000 mark before on-road costs. There are, naturally, plenty of cars that haven't made the cut here. The Kia EV5 wasn't competitive enough on value, the Deepal S07 wasn't quite as refined to drive in terms of its safety features, the Cupra Tavascan was better represented on value by the Volkswagen ID.4, and something like the Geely EX5 is a much cheaper offering. BYD is one of Australia's biggest sellers of electric cars, and this is its Tesla Model Y rival. It's called the Sealion 7. It's effectively an SUV version of the Seal sedan that we've known in Australia for a little while now. We wanted a rear-wheel drive premium model for this test. We couldn't get one here for testing, so we've had to make do with the all-wheel drive performance. We won't focus too much on the straight line speed of this car in this video though. It is mostly the same apart from a bit of extra performance and a few extra features here and there. The newest kid on the block here is the updated Tesla Model Y. It's had a pretty substantial upgrade for 2025. You can see new Cybertruck inspired styling up front, a bunch of changes inside to make it more comfortable and more high quality in terms of its materials and finishes, as well as some changes on the road, making it a bit more comfortable and a bit quieter to drive as well. We previously tested the long range model, so dual motor all-wheel drive. This one here is the base model rear-wheel drive, which should be the top seller in the range if history is a guide.
We've been waiting a long time for this ID.4 in Australia, but one benefit here is that we've now got an updated product. So we've got more power and torque from that rear-mounted electric motor, and we've got updated infotainment as well. But one thing I find interesting is the fact that this is the only one of these 4 not to be made in China. So how is it going to stack up for value for money and quality? Let's find out. You probably haven't heard of XPeng before, but this Chinese brand is trying to make a big name for itself in the EV space, and this is their G6. It's a medium-sized electric SUV. Now, this has very fast charging thanks to 800-volt infrastructure. Not all other electric SUVs have that, and also we've got a lot of cool technology in this car, and it's pretty good value for money. So let's see how this newcomer stacks up.
There's a lot to digest in terms of prices and specs. So on screen now are the list prices before on-road costs for each of the 4 cars, the driveway prices as tested, including premium paint and any options, as well as the claimed driving range of each car on test. We'll touch on interior features later in this comparison, as well as motor outputs, real-world range and charging speeds, but let's cover some exterior basics first. Standard on all 4 cars are LED headlights and taillights, alloy wheels measuring 19 inches on the Tesla and Volkswagen, or 20 inches on the BYD and XPeng, auto-folding mirrors and rain-sensing wipers. The Volkswagen is the shortest car here bumper to bumper, measuring about 4.6 metres long, while the BYD is the biggest at more than 4.8 metres long. But all are pretty much in that same realm of mid-sized electric SUVs, around the 4.7 metre mark overall. All cars in this group offer auto climate control, power adjustable front seats, voice control, a glass roof, heated front seats, wireless phone charging, ambient lighting, a heated steering wheel and a power tailgate. In terms of perceived value when you first sit in the car on the showroom floor, this BYD takes the win without a doubt. It feels much like a luxury car in here. The door closes with the loudest thunk, and all the materials are really soft and really plush. Leather-like materials up here on the armrest, the doors, even down to the glove box is actually soft touch down there. The BYD is loaded with features. It gets a 15.6-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, satellite navigation and over-the-air updates, plus a 10.25-inch driver instrument display, heated and ventilated front seats, heated outboard rear seats, leather trim, a 12-speaker Dynaudio sound system, a head-up display, and a panoramic sunroof with an electric sunshade. Now that touchscreen, as with all BYDs, is super fast and super responsive as well. The software is based on Android like you find on a smartphone, so again, it is really snappy and quite quick to use. As with all BYDs, it does the rotating things. So you press down there and it turns from portrait to landscape, though annoyingly you still can't use Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in that portrait mode. Those versions are wireless and they do work pretty well. We've had a decent connection on test in this car. It is worth noting BYD has made some steps to make the system a little bit easier to use in terms of accessing your climate controls and things which do run through the screen in this car. For example, your row along the bottom here is now pinned when you're in Apple CarPlay rather than having to swipe up. And I can do 3-finger swipes, so up and down for temperature, and then left and right for controlling your fan speed, which is a handy thing. It means you can pretty much do it without having to take your eyes off the road. Other things, you can swipe down for shortcuts for your safety stuff and things like that. And overall, it's a pretty easy to use system. We've had a couple of stutters throughout the week with this car, but overall, it does work pretty well. This driver display ahead of me here is clear. It's pretty easy to read. There's a lot going on in terms of what it shows, but it does the job pretty well. The biggest issue is how it's mounted in the car. You can see it's sort of flush with this gloss black panel across the dash, which means that can attract dust quite easily, and then get some sun glare as well, which means it can be hard to read in certain scenarios. And overall, the cabin is very well appointed. Plenty of materials, soft materials, as I said before, and also lots of amenities as well. These leather seats have a fair bit of bolstering to them, and they are quite comfy. And you even have under thigh support as well, which is rare in a Chinese car. That's something that XPeng doesn't have over there. Plenty of storage too. You've got some space underneath the console, decent sized glove box, as well as a decent sized center armrest spot as well. It's a nice cabin. There's some things that could be improved from a usability point of view, but overall, we're pretty impressed with the look and feel, particularly. I think a lot of buyers will be as well. Now, the cabin of this XPeng has a very similar vibe to some of the other cars we have on this test here, but it's a bit of a mix of BYD design elements and Tesla design elements. Things like the screen, obviously, everything does run through it. 15 inches across, so it's pretty competitive with the other cars we have on this test. The software is okay, but it's not quite as intuitive as what you get in the Tesla, and it's sort of very smartphone-like screen. Things are a few more taps away than you might otherwise like. Things like switching from Apple CarPlay to the main screen is just a little bit harder than you might otherwise like. You can swipe up and down, swipe up from the bottom. It can be a little bit stuttery at times to get shortcuts as well as shortcuts at the top. But yeah, it could be a little bit better, and things like the lumbar support for the driver's seat and even your side mirror controls are hidden in this screen, even beyond what Tesla does in its car. So not great there. You do have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, so it does work pretty well. But yeah, it could be a little bit of improvement there in the touchscreen. The adjustment of your air vents also runs to the screen, very similar to Tesla, and you get dual zone climate control in this car, as well as a whole bunch of other different features that make it competitive with its rivals. Features in the G6 include a 14.96-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, navigation and over-the-air updates, a 10.2-inch driver display, heated and cooled front seats, synthetic leather look trim, an 18-speaker in-house XPeng sound system, and heated rear seat cushions. It and the Tesla are the only cars with 2 wireless phone chargers, but the XPeng has no privacy glass. The driver display in this car is pretty clear and pretty easy to read, though it can be a little bit confusing at first in terms of navigating between its various views. And this steering wheel was a point of contention, I have to say, on this test. I'm not a huge fan of its shape and how thick it is. It's a little bit clumsy to use at times around town. Then again, not everyone on the drive team was put off by the design of this wheel. There are some places also that the XPeng could do with a bit more work ergonomically. This button for the center console, which is quite big, I should add, is sort of where your arm tends to lean when using the infotainment screen, which isn't great. And these cup holders are quite small, which may not fit large bottles. These seats, this is the white interior option in this test car here. It's a no-cost option. Black is the standard choice. They are pretty comfortable. They're 6-way adjustable on the driver's side, so no under-thigh support, which is a bit of a shame. And the material is a little bit plasticky, but I think on the whole, you will be okay with that. Plenty of storage around the place, lots of room under here, under the center console, decent sized door pockets as well, and that big center console box I mentioned before. But yeah, no glove box in this car, which is a bit of a shame, and also no overhead sunshade for the sunroof, which is something the Tesla is in that same boat as well. Feels well presented. The materials are quite nice around the place. I think a lot of buyers will like the way that XPeng feels inside the cabin, but there are some places where it could be improved compared to some of its rivals on this test. Now, all the cars that we have here on test have minimalist cabins, but this Tesla takes it to a whole new level. The learning curve in this car is very, very steep, but once you get the hang of it, it does work quite well. Everything runs with this big 15.4-inch touchscreen here, and the software is smartphone-like, super fast, quite easy to navigate with so many menus that are in this car. We wish there was Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Tesla's never really had those in its cars, but the inbuilt navigation is fantastic. The way it can route you from different superchargers and actually accurately predict the amount of battery you'll have on arrival is also fantastic. And look, after you get used to the system, this infotainment screen does work really, really well. Now, when I said everything goes through it, I do mean everything goes through it. Your speed is up there in the top corner of the screen. you don't have any sort of instrument display in front of me here. Things like your mirror controls, your steering column controls are all hidden in this screen, which again, takes some getting used to in this car. Now the Tesla may be short on buttons, but it certainly is not short on standard equipment. Those include satellite navigation, music and video streaming, and over-the-air updates, an 8-inch rear touchscreen, heated and ventilated leather look front seats, heated outboard rear seats, a power adjustable steering column, dual zone climate control, a 9-speaker in-house sound system, and keyless entry through the phone key only. Some of the new features for 2025 in this Model Y include this new seat design, more comfortable than before, more supportive as well. New steering wheel, you now have your gear shifter on the touchscreen, which is a little bit fiddly at first, but there is some software where the car will actually anticipate your moves in a 3-point turn and make it a little bit easier on a day-to-day basis to live with that. You just will have an indicator stalk though, which is something that Tesla didn't give you in the updated Model 3 sedan. And the design of the cabin has changed a bit. There's nice sort of fabric material up here on the dash, which feels much nicer than the old wood grain you got in the outgoing Model Y. Lovely ambient lighting running around the cabin, as well as just a general higher sense of build quality and fit and finish. You can see fewer squeaks and rattles in this car than the old Model Y had. Got nice sort of leather-like materials on the center armrests, all the sort of door panels, the center console. Every touch feels really nice and really high quality, which is not something you could say about the previous Model Y interior. Storage in this car is the best of the bunch. You've got a really, really deep center bin there, even more space under this armrest with a single USB port, which can be a bit hard to find at night, but you do have the wireless phone charger there that do take a bit of the load off that. You've got a glove box, which is a bit small, and you have to open it through the screen, which this one is not opening quite as quickly as we'd like, but there you go. It is a little bit fiddly, but it is quite small as well. And I suppose, when do you really use your glove box? Decent sized door pockets as well, and overall, a general nice cabin, well presented, plenty of technology, and definitely a standout in this mid-size EV class. Now this Volkswagen is the most conventional car here in terms of its interior design, and it is quite similar to other cars in the Volkswagen range. Got a 12.9-inch touchscreen here, and the software is fine, and the screen is a pretty decent size, but it's a bit fussier than some of the other cars we're testing here. Now look, speaking of fussy, these touch-sensitive controls under the screen are really not great. Slider control there for the volume, as well as air temperature on the sides. And you've even got the touch-sensitive buttons on the steering wheel as well. And we found that while driving this car, perhaps in a tight corner, I'm always hitting this heated steering wheel button just by accident. And yeah, really not great and not a great experience there. Volkswagen has committed to getting rid of these. For some reason, that hasn't flowed on to the ID.4 just yet. There is plenty of stuff you do get in this ID.4 Pro, even for a base model. That includes a 5.3-inch driver display, leather and micro fleece trim, power adjustable heated front seats, keyless entry, tri-zone climate control, a sunshade for the glass roof, and a hands-free power tailgate. Some other omissions, however, include ventilated front seats, inbuilt sat-nav, over-the-air updates, heated rear seats, and premium audio, as other cars here offer. Its phone companion app is also not as capable as the other cars here. Now you can tell Volkswagen has been making cars for a long time because the basics and the fundamentals of the interior are very well executed. I love these seats in particular, sort of synthetic leather and microfleece centers here, with this no-cost option brown accents on them. Super comfortable, super supportive, loads of adjustment as well, including thigh bolsters you can actually extend from the bottom of the seats there. Lovely leather steering wheel wrap as well, with the heating as I mentioned before. And overall, the material choices in this cabin are pretty nice. Some pretty soft stuff up here, and it all feels well built and well screwed together. There are some sort of hard, scratchy things lower down, and there's a lot of gloss black around the place, from the center console down here to even the door handles on the door, so where you grab, for example, in a tight corner. That's gloss black, and as you can see in this car, which only has 2,000 Ks on the clock, it's marked, it's all covered in fingerprints. I don't know why you'd put gloss black somewhere your fingers go, but anyway, perhaps something that can be improved with a future version of the ID.4. Storage is okay, got a fair amount of room in the center console down here with your wireless charger there as well. I think the fact that the ID.4's interior is quite conventional is probably a good thing for this car. And it isn't probably the best equipped here in terms of features. It doesn't have all the nice trimmings that perhaps that BYD does, but it just feels really nice, well put together, and like a company that knows how to make a good car. If that was a lot to digest, let's rank them. The XPeng comes fourth. It's well trimmed, but hasn't had as much thought put into the ergonomics as the other cars here. That's followed by the Volkswagen. It's well built and comfortable, but lacks the features of the others. Then the BYD. It's loaded with equipment and super comfortable, but the driving position isn't great, and the infotainment screen isn't quite as good as our first place finisher here, the Tesla, which is clean, spacious, comfortable, and feature-laden, as long as you can get used to that user interface. The BYD is the longest car of this group from nose to tail, so it does make sense that there is the most knee room in the back here. You can see acres of legroom for the front seat, and you do feel quite low in this car with quite a bit of bolstering on these back seats. I will say it's not perfect. Tow room is okay, but not quite as good as some of the other cars here. And forward visibility is also not amazing, given how big this sort of sporty front seat is. But headroom is actually surprisingly good for a car with such a sloping roofline. That's something you'll hear a lot us say in this video. And the rest of the backseat experience is pretty good. You can see decent under thigh support as well. It helps that you can stretch out so much in the back here. Phone pockets, map pockets on the front seat backs. Fold down center armrest with quite a complex cup holder arrangement perhaps, as well as some little bit of storage in there as well. Flat floor of course, and you get some heated outboard rear seats in this performance spec, as well as air vents and some USB ports that come out there. It's a really nice space in the back of the BYD. You even get the same soft materials in the back of the BYD that you find in the front seats of this car. And look, on the whole, it is quite a premium space back here. It feels luxurious when you get into it. I think for a lot of buyers, as I mentioned before, that will really, really appeal. Space in the back of this XPeng is actually pretty good for a car of this dimensions. You can see plenty of knee room there for the front seat. Surprising amount of headroom under this glass roof. The tow room is a little bit on the tighter side, but it's not too bad overall. See quite a flat floor, so I can sort of stretch out, again, as with the EV platforms on these cars. And you have the usual things like map pockets back here, 2 USB-C ports, air vents, as well as a fold-down center armrest with a pair of pop-out cup holders there. A little bit finicky, but they are pop-out cup holders. Now, you can recline these seat backs with a little lever that's on the right-hand side. And they do go a fair way back, which is quite nice. And they are quite comfortable overall in terms of the under thigh support you get. They're a little bit flat, but overall they are actually pretty decent there. Both the Tesla and the XPeng have electric door releases both for the front and the back. In the Tesla, they are sort of up here on the handle. In the XPeng, they're here on the side of the armrest, which is a little bit less natural than the Tesla, but still, it's okay. Now, the problem is though, obviously in an accident, or if the power dies, for example, you need to get out without the assistance of the electric door releases. How do you do it? Well, there are manual releases in the front and the back of this car, as with the Model Y, but they are in a bit of an awkward spot. In the back here, you're sort of behind a piece of trim in the door pocket that you have to sort of push out of the way. It feels like you're breaking the bit of trim, and then pull a lever and then open the door manually. It's just not good enough. It needs to be better. It needs to be clearer, because in a crash, in an emergency, I'm not going to be fumbling around in that door trim trying to find that. It's just too hard. Manufacturers need to find a better way to do that with that manual release, or just go back to an old-fashioned handle like the Volkswagen and like the BYD. This Model Y is one of the more spacious cars we have on test here. You can see loads of knee room behind the front seats, loads of headroom as well, and more tow room than any other car here. They've got actually a shocking amount of tow room under that front seat. And even for the middle passenger as well, they've got loads of tow room because this sort of center area has been carved out there, which is great to see. This is the only car here with a rear touchscreen for the passengers in the back. So you can do things like play games, play different videos, Netflix, YouTube, stuff like that, as well as your normal climate controls. You've got heated outboard seats in this car, as well as your control of your air vents. Now, you do have to do that through the screen. You can't just move a little lever. That is a bit of a shame, but again, that is something that you do get in the back of this Tesla. Now, new for the update this year for the Model Y are power reclining rear seats. So a little button on my right-hand side here, or left if you're sitting there. I can tilt that back or tilt it forward. So yeah, pretty cool feature, rather than just pulling a lever, which can be a little bit awkward at times. And I can actually even recline these back seats from the front seats. So for example, you've got something big to load in, you can drop the back seats without having to actually get out of the driver's seat, which is pretty cool there. Other thing to point out, under thigh support is better than the old Model Y, but still compared to the other rivals here, it's not quite as good. And amenities are pretty well covered off. You've got a fold down center armrest with a pair of cup holders here, the usual ice fix points and top tethers that all three of these cars have, air vents, 2 USB-C ports there, as well as some space in the door pockets there, which actually flock line too, which is pretty cool. On the whole, really like the back of this Model Y. So it's a spacious place, plenty of amenities too, and I think a lot of families really like the back seats of this car. The Volkswagen is the smallest car on the outside in this group, and it does feel it to an extent in the back seats here. I don't have as much knee room as I do at the other cars in this test. Headroom is pretty good up there behind the glass roof, but yeah, tow room is a little bit on the tighter side, and the floor is mostly flat, but not quite as flat as the other cars in this test. The seat base is quite comfortable, decent support there. It's a little bit flat in places, but the under thigh support is actually pretty good. And you've got the usual things like phone pockets up here, map pockets down there as well. There's no reclining function that I could find, at least on this seat, but comfort is okay otherwise, not quite as good as some of the others. There are some other places where the Volkswagen is not quite as good as the others. For example, some hard scratching materials up here, and things like your climate controls down here. You do have air vents and a separate zone of climate for the back seats. Usual things like a fold down set armrest with a pair of cup holders, and also a ski port there for folding through really long items. Look, overall, it's a pretty nice space in the back here, not quite as roomy as the others. And yeah, some places where it could be improved compared to other cars in this test, but comfort levels are pretty good overall. The Volkswagen places fourth in terms of rear seats, simply because it's not as roomy as the other cars on test here. The XPeng is next. It's pretty roomy, but not quite on the level of the others in terms of features and space. Then on a tie is the BYD and the Tesla. The BYD wins on knee room and overall space, but the Model Y has a handy rear screen, the power adjustment in the rear seats, and the general all-round appeal and comfort that you see in the Tesla. We struggle to split the backseat comfort of these two cars, but what about you? Which one would you prefer, the BYD, the Tesla, or what about the other cars in this comparison? Which one would you buy? Let us know in the comments down below. The boot capacities of 3 non-Tesla cars in this test are pretty similar on paper, around the sort of 500 litre mark or so. Volkswagen has a bunch of useful things like this net here for keeping stuff down, as well as a ski port for particularly long items. XPeng's a little bit more simple. Tailgate is very low. I hit my head on that many times during filming this video. It's a bit of space underfloor, but it's a pretty simple space overall. The BYD's is the smallest on paper, and it does look like there's a lot of sheet metal around the boot, and the load area opening isn't as big as the others. But it is pretty clear the Tesla is the winner of this. More than 800 litres of quoted storage. We're pretty sure that is still measured to the roof, so it probably isn't quite like for like, but it's pretty clear this is the biggest space when I start to lift up this parcel shelf here. If that wasn't enough, there's even more storage under the floor. That could fit an entire carry-on suitcase, as well as pockets on the side that will actually fit small items, pretty much anything you want down there. Often your groceries can fall over and roll into there, but still it is nice to have that, but not. That's all not to mention the fronts of these cars, or the front storage areas under the bonnets. The Tesla and the BYD are the only ones with a frunk, to use the American term, or front trunk. This Tesla's one though is much bigger, 116 litres, there's 58 litres in the BYD, and it's the only one with a drain plug up there as well. All 4 cars are closely matched in terms of safety features, each offering auto emergency braking, adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, lane centering assist, blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, front and rear park distance warnings, and plenty of parking cameras. The Tesla is optioned with auto lane changes as part of the $5,100 enhanced autopilot pack. The Tesla gets auto parking as standard, again that's optional on the Model Y, and the BYD uniquely offers front cross traffic alert. The Volkswagen is the only car here without traffic sign recognition and direct tyre pressure monitors. The Tesla is the only car without a top-down 360 camera, while only the Tesla and the XPeng have blind spot cameras when you put your indicator on. In terms of how the safety systems work in the real world, the Volkswagen takes the win here, closely followed by the Tesla. The BYD and XPeng systems aren't terrible, but they do need a bit more work.
Now, where this Sealion 7 no doubt swings its strongest punch in this company is value for money. Now, let me explain that with all the numbers and specs. The value of the BYD Sealion is best summed up by the fact that we have the top spec all-wheel drive model on test here, which gives big outputs of 390 kilowatts and 690 newton meters. However, the price doesn't necessarily blow out that massively compared to the others. That means it's good enough for a 0 to 100 km/h dash in 4.5 seconds, and it's got a big 82.5 kilowatt hour battery, so that means the Sealion 7 is relatively heavy as well. It comes in at 2,340 kilos. But the driving experience of this Sealion 7 is perhaps the least polished or refined out of these 4. It's got a fairly soft ride quality, so you do feel the body moving up and down at times, but at the same time you don't get good bump absorption like you might expect. So the body does get a lot of movement, but you're still getting some pretty big inputs from things like going over potholes and bumps, speed bumps and that sort of thing around town. Steering does feel to be okay overall, but when you really put it to task, it can feel a bit inconsistent and ponderous at times when you're driving on country roads or starting to push it through corners a little bit. And just like what that badge says on the back, quoting the 0 to 100 performance times, this is a seriously fast vehicle. Depending on your driving mode, the throttle isn't overly responsive to start with, but you've definitely got a lot of punch there when you need it. Likely way more than you'll ever need for driving around town. But unfortunately, on the dynamic side, the chassis of this Sealion 7 doesn't really keep up its end of the bargain. You've got plenty of straight line performance, but once you start pushing this thing through corners and handling mid-corner bumps and that sort of thing, you get that squidginess that tends to put the steering out of whack a little bit. The body starts to move around. You're definitely not as confident behind the wheel, and you don't get the same sort of reward at the same time. So while this Sealion 7 might go really hard in terms of bang for buck, it does fall behind in terms of just the level of quality in the driving experience overall. Once again, it's not bad. This is part of the final four, the top four in this segment, which has so many options to choose from. But in this company, it does fall behind the pace a bit. Recent updates to the Volkswagen ID.4 gives it more power from that single electric motor at the rear. We've now got 210 kilowatts and 545 newton meters, and we've also got an upsized 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. Now it is the second heaviest in this comparison, weighing in at 2,140 kilos. One important inclusion here is the adaptive damping, which is standard fit in the ID.4. These are controllable shock absorbers that can go firmer or softer through different driving modes, or through its own range of settings. And other details include progressive steering for the ID.4 in Australia and 19-inch alloy wheels. Thanks to a recent round of updates to this Volkswagen ID.4, what we get as a first taste in Australia, don't forget, this has been available for a number of years in other markets. This car does feel like it offers a really strong balance of value for money, but also good standard specification. And even though this is Volkswagen's first fully electric medium-sized SUV, it does feel very Volkswagen-y, if that makes sense. This German brand has been building cars for a long time that get that balance right of driving, feedback, performance, ride comfort, and all those things. And you get that sense here that that dial hasn't really shifted, even though we've now got fully electric motivation. This car steers and rides fairly typically, I suppose, and doesn't really shift the needle around that much compared to an internal combustion or hybrid powered vehicle. Yes, you can feel the weight of this ID.4 at times. All electric cars are heavy, and this is no exception to the rule. But the ride quality is really good. You've got adaptive dampers here, they're nicely balanced. There isn't a huge amount of change between the stiffest and the softest suspension setting, but that's actually not too bad of a thing because, to be honest with you, it feels pretty good, somewhere between the middle and the bottom of that rung. Yes, you can tighten things up if you want, but I prefer the ride quality. You've still got a nice balanced steering feel, but I've got to say, these brakes are a real letdown. I'm not sure if it's because of the drum brakes we have fitted at the rear of this ID.4 that slow down the response of the brake pedal, but you've got a real sponginess there initially and a lot of travel to get through before you get any meaningful bite in the braking system. You might get used to it maybe, but I would argue that you shouldn't have to. The braking should be better in a car like this. But put the braking aside and you've got a driving experience that is actually quite good. This is rear wheel drive only. You've got ample power and torque there. I think this car has enough performance for the application, but in terms of the way this car steers through corners, the way it handles bumps and that sort of thing, this does feel quite nice. And when you're on the right kind of road, maybe out in the country somewhere, this does have that extra little bit of salt and pepper in the driving experience, I think. It's just a little bit more rewarding, a little bit more responsive and alive on the road. And some people, I think, will appreciate that. Not so much around the burbs and that sort of thing. Yes, the ride comfort is good, but the drivers will like this car on the right patch of road. But overall, this ID.4 is really nicely balanced, I think. The ride is good, the steering is easy, and it's got a really conventional sense to it, I think. It doesn't shift the dial and feel radically different for any reason. It feels just like a regular car, really, just happens to be electrically powered, but also really nicely engineered. The XPeng G6 does undercut the key rival of the Tesla Model Y on price, but it still offers plenty of technical specification. This has an 800-volt powertrain architecture, which is definitely impressive for the price. And there's a single electric motor at the rear that makes 190 kilowatts and 440 newton meters. Now, in terms of weight, this standard range G6 is just over 2 tons. Now, for those who opt for the long-range model with a larger battery, power is nudged up to 210 kilowatts to account for the extra weight. And for those who want all-wheel drive power with 2 electric motors, hang on, because there is a performance variant of the G6 coming. Now, you'll notice that the XPeng G6 is the only one of these final 4 to be one of those really newcomer brands to the market. We've had so many Chinese electric brands arrive recently, but the XPeng does feel like a cut above the rest in many regards. And a lot of that, to be honest with you, comes from what you get for the asking price. And the driving experience of this G6 is quite good overall. There are no major issues with it. It's also almost kind of forgettable in a way. It doesn't really get in the way of driving. It's very easy, very convenient, quite comfortable as well. For punting around town like we're doing at the moment, steering is light, it's nimble enough, visibility is good, that all works quite well. But when you start driving this thing on rougher roads, when you start punting it through corners and that sort of thing, that's when you'll notice that there is a bit of a bobbling feeling to the ride quality. Steering isn't perhaps as dialed as some others in this comparison. You've got ample power and responsiveness from that single electric motor at the rear. Although this brake pedal, in comparison to what you have with the Volkswagen ID.4, which is overly soft and spongy, this is perhaps a little bit too tight and grabby. Another thing to talk about is the technology that you've got on board with this G6. There's no shortage of it, to be honest with you, and a lot of it, it'll wow your friends. It's all modern and fancy, but the driver monitoring system is a little bit frustrating at times, to be honest with you. It gets cranky at you for your hand position on the steering wheel. It can go off at you if you don't have enough inputs into the steering at random times. So it's a little bit overbearing and really does take away, I suppose, as the major flaw, I would say, from otherwise a very serene and easy driving experience. But overall, this G6 is quite effortless, quite painless, comfortable and easy to drive. Although when you really start getting down to the nitty-gritty, it's perhaps missing just a little bit of that polish that you get with the Tesla and the Volkswagen in particular. The Tesla Model Y is the most powerful of the 3 rear-wheel driven SUVs in this comparison. It's only beaten by the dual-motor BYD. 255 kilowatts of power is impressive. This means the Tesla Model Y can get from 0 to 100 in a shade under 6 seconds, and a relatively small 60 kilowatt hour battery pack means the Tesla Model Y is the lightest in this comparison, at just under 2 tons. Now, out of the 4 in this comparison, the Tesla Model Y is certainly the most space age feeling and modern to drive, I think, for a few reasons. And the one thing that stood out to me mostly is just the vision from the front. The bonnet falls away quite aggressively at the front here, so you can't see that. And you've got this sort of great visibility in front of you with a small steering wheel and nothing really impeding your view. It's quite different and interesting to drive. Now, the steering wheel is relatively small and the steering ratio is quite fast, so there's not many turns from lock to lock in this car. Now, the turning circle maybe isn't the best out of the 4 in this comparison, but I think it's okay for the job. But you've got a throttle and brake that are pretty responsive, quite touchy at times, but I think overall very well balanced. And you can get used to driving this car quite well, especially with that sort of one pedal driving experience that you can plug in. Only this and the XPeng actually have that as an option. But perhaps the most important improvement for the Model Y, I think, in the sake of this comparison, is the ride quality. Now, this is not as terse and jittery as it used to be. You've got a little edge of compliance there, bump absorption, which goes a long way for this car, but you've still got good amounts of body control going on here, so the car doesn't feel soft and wallowy and bouncy. You're absorbing the bumps well, but this car actually steers quite nicely at the same time. It feels balanced, it feels responsive, it gives you a little bit of feedback in terms of what's going on underneath the car. And even though you can option up to a much more powerful all-wheel drive model, There's a lot of responsiveness from this rear-wheel drive model here at the moment. Now, Tesla doesn't quote a torque figure for this vehicle, but from the seat of pants, even though there is an all-wheel drive BYD in this comparison as well, not the rear-wheel drive model, this feels like one of the perkiest of the bunch, definitely. Now, in terms of technology and driver assistance and that sort of thing, the Tesla has historically been very good and advanced in that regard, and that continues to be the case here. You've got really, really good adaptive cruise with lane centering. The thing will practically drive by itself as much as it can within the letter of the law. And there's driver monitoring and there's all sorts of technology going on here, but it is nicely integrated and it doesn't tend to impede too much in the everyday driving experience, and that is really important, I think. Now, there are some things that definitely need getting used to. Things like the gear shifter, it's a bit weird. The way the indicators work, that's a bit of a funny one as well. And you've got nothing in front of you as a driver. So visibility is fantastic, but you don't exactly have an overloading of information at the same time. So that all takes getting used to. But overall, this Tesla Model Y doesn't do much wrong. In fact, it does a lot of things really, really well, and that's pushing it right up towards the pointy end of this comparison, I think. This is a really nicely polished car overall.
On screen now is each car's claimed energy consumption rating, as well as what we saw in our test loop in the real world. Maintenance costs also vary between our contenders. Over 4 years, the Volkswagen quotes $1,190, the BYD $1,854, and the XPeng $1,826. While there is no servicing schedule or pricing for the Model Y, as maintenance is condition-based, that means the car will tell you when it needs to be serviced, rather than taking it in at set intervals. The BYD asks for service visits every 12 months or 20,000 kilometres, whichever comes first, while the Volkswagen is set at 24 months or 30,000 Ks. It must be noted that whereas Tesla and Volkswagen operate their own service centres, as does BYD in addition to its arrangement with My Car, XPeng factory maintenance is conducted through the UltraTune network of third-party service centres, not its own dealers. Vehicle warranties ring in at 5 years and limited kilometres for the Volkswagen, though at the time of testing, you can boost the XPeng's warranty up to 10 years or 220,000 kilometres as part of a special offer. The BYD quotes 6 years, 150,000 kilometres, now with fewer asterisks on different parts of the vehicle, while the Tesla is shorter at 4 years or 80,000 Ks. All vehicles quote an 8-year battery warranty. These are 4 of the best $60,000 electric SUVs on sale, but there can only be one winner. It didn't take much time behind the wheel for the judges to split the field in two: the 2 best cars and the 2 least impressive. 4th place is taken by the BYD Sealion 7. It's dripping in showroom appeal with a spacious cabin, sharp price, long list of equipment, and prodigious power in this performance model. But it disappoints on the road with an inconsistent ride, mediocre handling, slow DC charging, and a thirsty electric drivetrain that really limits its real-world range. 3rd is claimed by the XPeng G6 by a whisker. It's a solid all-rounder, better to drive, faster to charge, and more energy efficient than the BYD, while being the cheapest car to buy here. It's well appointed, and its techie feel will appeal to plenty of buyers. However, it doesn't excel in any particular area, space, ergonomics, tech, or driving dynamics, to really make an impression on the judges and come away with a win in this comparison. And that servicing arrangement with UltraTune, rather than in-house dealers, would give us pause for thought in buying one.
Now that leaves only 2, and in 2nd place we've got this Volkswagen ID.4. This is a really impressive and well-rounded car overall, I think, and one big benefit for me, I think, from this ID.4 is the driving experience. But it's not a perfect offering, and there are some areas where it starts to fall off the pace a little bit. One big bugbear for me is definitely that brake pedal. It's just too soft for my taste. Yes, some might get used to it, but I would argue you shouldn't have to get used to it. And in terms of space, it's just not as spacious as others from a family usage point of view, and the packaging in particular, I'm going to call it out in comparison to the Tesla, it's just off the pace there.
That's right, and that's why this Tesla is the winner of this comparison. This car is a fantastic all-round offering, both as a family SUV as well as a cutting-edge electric car. It's got loads of room inside, as you said, great packaging, a massive boot in particular, and how Tesla has used that space and basically given it all to you. It's not lost in the structure of the car, it's all there. The tech is fantastic, it's great to drive as well. A bit sportier than some of the other cars behind us particularly, but still really well-rounded and a really fantastic package overall. There are some places where we wish it could be improved. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto may be a bit of an annoyance, or the lack thereof for some buyers. The warranty is very short as well, 4 years, 80,000 Ks, compared to up to 10 years for that XPeng. It's a little bit of a weakness of this car, but on the whole, there are no obvious shortcomings that you can't get over with this car. This is a fantastic all-round package, and that's why it's the winner for this comparison. If you're after something else to watch, click on the video on your screen now for our electric car winners from the recent Drive Car of the Year judging. From sub 50 grand sedans to luxury SUVs.